Now, sequel to the last video I did regarding my advice on beachfront properties in Ibejuleki, it has become very important for me to do a crash course regarding property titles. And in this episode of Meet the Property Guy, we'll be looking at the hierarchies of property titles here in Nigeria, so that you guys can understand the level, the category, each of the property document that you have, where they belong. Now, this video will be a series video, so we are not going to be doing or talking about all the titles on this episode only. So we'll be having a part 2, a part 3, part 4 of this particular topic about the hierarchies of property titles here in Nigeria. And just like the advice I've been getting and suggestions I've been getting for a while, this video will also be graphical. So at some point in this video, you're not going to be seeing my face. So there will be a table on the screen which I'll be explaining about later on in this video. Now, in case you are coming across a video like this for the first time, this is Meet the Property Guy Property Channel, and this will discuss everything in real estate for first-time investors, avid investors, and even people who are just about to start investing in real estate. We share tips, guys, and advice on what to look out for, property titles, property documents, the risk attached to investing in Lagos, even investing in Nigeria real estate entirely. And we have a lot of playlists already on this channel which you are going to learn a lot from. We have playlists on Shortlet, playlists on Ekpe, playlists on Ibejuleki, playlists on Lekki, Lagos mainland, and so on and so forth like that. So after watching this video, I also suggest you go to any of these playlists so that you can watch some of the topics, some of the episodes that I've covered on any of this topic. So let's go into the topic of the day, the hierarchies of property titles here in Lagos and even Nigeria entirely. But like I said before, that at some point in this video, you are not going to be seeing my face, and instead we are going to be having a tabular diagram on the screen. So for these hierarchies of property titles, there are a lot of things that you might not understand fully if I'm just saying it by mouth. But via diagrams and via illustrations is going to help for you to understand better and also grab the points I'm trying to pass across to you guys. Now, looking at this diagram, there are already some titles that you are familiar with. You're already seeing governor's consent, already seeing CFO there, already seeing Excision, although you guys are not, you might not understand why some are in small print, some are in large print. And then you're already seeing the deed of assignment / registered survey, and you are seeing some arrows also going up, going sideways, and so on and so forth. Don't get yourself confused. Don't get yourself confused. Each of everything that I put in this table, I'm going to explain it. Although we are not going to be covering everything in this single episode, but we don't want to overload you with information. We want you to understand it bit by bit, because it's very important for you to grab and understand deeply where you are investing your money, because those money don't come free. You worked hard for it. So if you are investing so much in real estate, you've got 5 properties, 6 properties, 8 properties, 10 properties, you just want to understand as much as you can about the documents that are pertaining to these properties and how to interpret, understand each of these documents. So let's go straight up into the table, and so that you are going to understand most of what we have here. So firstly, we have it at the down. All land is free. All land is free. Then we have an arrow going to the land decree in 1978 or 1979, as anyone call it, but we had the land decree. That's a fact. So what this really mean in simple term is, prior to the land decree, all land was considered to be free. The government had no reason to acquire a land for themselves, and the government also had no reasons to allocate land to anyone. So either a company needs a land or an individual needs a land, all they have to do is go to the families or the communities that are in charge of those land to purchase those property from them. Now, for land that the government need, then also prior to the land decree, the government also had to go to the families and also had to go to the communities and seek their permission and their consent to have access to those land. But everything changed after the decree. So, and that's why after the land decree, we have an arrow, and then we have 3 subcategories. We have the committed acquisition by the left, we have the non-committed acquisition at the middle, and then we have the free at the right hand side. Now we are going to be explaining all one by one so that you understand how all this affects real estate, how all this affects your investment, and also how all these different grammars, how they interpret. Now just like I mentioned before, we are not going to be talking about everything in this video. So in this video, I'm only going to be talking about committed acquisition and then non-committed acquisition down to allocation. So in the next subsequent videos, we take it up from allocation, talk about the consent, and then gradually talk about C of O2. So let's go into the committed acquisition, which is the one at the left. So with the land decree in 1978, what basically happened was the decree granted the state government, the state governors, because at least every state every state is governed by someone. So the land decree granted the state governors access to lands. So all land in the states were vested in trust to the state governors. So the state governors were given the authority to acquire some land for public use. Then they were also granted the authority to acquire some land for future use, and as well as release some certain land to the community or the family. So the land decree didn't just collected all the land from the community or from the family. No, the land decree only vested the state government and the state governors the authority to acquire land. So they can acquire a land permanently for public use, they can acquire a land for public use, and also they can also leave some land like that and acknowledge the families or the communities that they are the rightful owners to those land. So the land decree granted the state government and the state governors as the custodian of all the lands in their states. So let's go to the committed acquisition. I'm not going to be going to the legal interpretation of the decree and all those. I'm just going to make it simple, in simple terms for you to understand. Now, committed acquisition are land that the state governors and state governments have acquired for public use with a specific use for it. So which means that this committed acquisition are land where the government wants to use for public use. And on the table you will see that we have an illustration there for public use. We have cemetery is part of public use, canal part of public use, free trade zone part of public use, airport is also a public use, a school, either is a tertiary, primary or secondary school, is also a public use, a market is either is an ultra-modern market or whatever market, it's also a public use, a bridge is a public use, a train station is a public use, a bus stop is a public use, a police station is also a public use. So any land that the government acquire for any of these purposes is a committed acquisition, which means that this land is not available for individuals, is not available for companies, because the government already have a plan for that particular land, and the plan they want to use it for have also been specified. Like they want to build a school there, they want to build a police station there, they want to build a cemetery there, they want to build a university there, they want to build a bridge there, or whatever use they want to use that land for. Is a committed acquisition. Now So let's move to non-committed acquisition. This is where everything gets complex, and this is where all is about come in. So under non-committed acquisition, we have two subcategories. We have excision by the left as a subcategory of non-committed acquisition, and then we have allocation by the right as a subcategory of non-committed acquisition. Now, at times you might want to buy a property, and then your surveyor goes there, or your lawyer gone in search on that property, and they tell you that that land is under acquisition. Now, you may not understand what they are trying to mean, and after watching this video, you should be able to understand and know the right questions to ask. Now, so there are basically two types of acquisition. The committed acquisition is one for public use and has a designated use purpose already. The government has specified what they want to use that land for. Now, for non-committed acquisition, we have the excision, we have the allocation. The non-committed acquisition is land that the government have acquired for future use. Future use. They have not specified what they want to use that property for yet, or what they want to use that land for yet, but they have acquired it. Now, so we now have two subcategories of this excision and this non-committed acquisition. Now, the subcategories that we mean here is how a non-committed acquisition property can be available for the public. So that means how a company, how an individual, a family can have access to a property that the government have acquired already. So now we have excision, we have allocation. Now, the word excision is a simple English word that means to remove a part from a whole. So, which means that when the government acquire a particular property that for a community, from a community or a family for a future use, they can also decide to release a part of that acquisition to the community. So, let's say for example, a community have 300 acres of land. Then out of the 300 acres, the government acquired 10 acres to build a university. That's a committed acquisition. The university is a public use, and then the 10 acres already have a specific use the government wants to use it for. So it's public use and it's specific, committed. Nobody should go to that 10 acres and do anything, because the government have acquired it for that specific use and it's a public use. Now, in that same community where we have 300 acres, remember 10 acres is out, so we have 290 acres remaining. The government acquired an extra 100 acres in that community for a future use. And the reason why the government always acquire land for future use, that they acquire more land for future use, is that the government don't always want to go back to the community every time for compensation or resettlement whenever they need the land. So maybe the community is already filled up, and the government want to expand the road, they want to build an overhead bridge, they want to build a canal, and they now have to go back to the community, start demolishing houses, start paying people compensation for that particular public use, that that particular public purpose that they want to use that property for. The government does not want it. So that's why they acquire more land than needed. So whenever they need any property for a public use, maybe they want to, in the future, the university they built, they need to build an annex or build an extension of that university. Instead of them to now go to the community and start demolishing houses, they'll just go to that part where they acquired for future before and now build that university there. Or maybe they have a place where they want to put a police station, they have a place where they want to designate as a cemetery or any other public use. They can easily convert any property that they have acquired for future use to a committed property. That means for a specific use. You get it now? So out of the 300 acres, they acquired another extra 100 acres for future use that not designate what to use that 100 acres for. Now, they have acquired 10 acres for university, then 100 acres for future use, meaning 110 acres out of 300 acres. So there is how many plots left? 190 acres left in that community. So the government can now grant the community or the family an excision on that 190 acres. So what it means that the community shouldn't go close to the 10 acres for the school, and the community shouldn't go close to the 100 acres for future use. So the only place the community can reside, they can farm, they can settle, they can sell, is that 190 acres which the government have released and give them an excision. So whenever you see excision in any community, whenever you see excision in any village, you should also understand that there is also acquisition in that village too. There is also acquisition in that community too, and that's why you must verify that excision to be sure that the part that they want to sell to you is within the part that the government have released to them, not the part that the government have acquired. So hope you get it now. So that's the relationship between committed acquisition, non-committed acquisition, and excision. So there is 300 acres in that community. The governments are already taking 10 acres for committed acquisition. Now to build a university there, committed. Nobody should get close to it, either individual, family, company, nobody. So then they acquired another extra 100 acres for future use. So that's a non-committed acquisition because it's for future use, non-committed. Now, out of the entire 300 acres, there's 190 acres left. So the government now call them, okay, oh yeah, the community, come here. How many families do you have here? We have 10 families. Oh yeah, all the family, give us their names. The government now give them an excision at, okay, oh, we have taken 110 acres from your land. 10 for committed, 100 for non-committed. But now we are giving you guys 190 acres. And we are noting the name of the families that you are giving this excision. So family, so family, so family, all belonging to this community. We grant you guys the excision. Hope you are getting it now. So that's the part. So excision can only be to a family or to a community. Those are the only people the state government can grant an excision. The family or the community, the original people in that place are the people that the government can grant an excision. Now, the right hand side part, which is the allocation, what does that mean? Remember, this community, they had 300 acres. The government have taken 10 acres for a university, committed acquisition. They have taken another extra 100 acres for future use. They haven't specified what to use it for yet. And then there's an extra 190 acres which they have granted the community 190 acres which they have granted the community and excision on. So out of these 100 acres that the government acquired for public use, for future use, now a company can come to the government that Lagos State government to Ogun State government to Ibadan government to, we need this property. Since you guys have not specified a particular use for it, release this property for us. We want to build either what do you call it? We want to build a warehouse here. We want to build a factory here. We want to build an industrial plant here. We want to build a housing development here. So that's when the allocation comes in. So for the government to release a land that they have acquired before, they can either release it to the community or the family as an excision, or they can release it to a company or to an individual who is not in any way related to the family or the community of origin via an allocation. So that's just the difference between the two. In those two ways, the government are releasing the land, but the people that are releasing it to differs. So if the government is releasing a land that have acquired before to the family or to the community, that's an excision. But if they are releasing it to an individual or to a company, that's an allocation. Now, there are so many legal terms that come across this allocation part, so I won't be going too much into that. Now, if you look at the excision part vividly, you are going to see that there are some small prints that I put there. On the excision, at the top, I put the word gazetted. Then under the excision also, I have some small points there. I have excision in view, I have approved excision, I have excision block, I have village excision. Now, out of these four, it's only excision in view that is different. You see, approved excision, government approved excision, excision block, village excision, they are all the same. They mean the same thing, that it's just different interpretations, but all of them are still basically the same interpretation, the same meaning. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. Now, if the government have acquired a land and they want to release some part of that land to the community, like that, these 300 acres, I'm giving an example, they have acquired 110 acres in that community and they want to release 190 acres. So, first in is that there will be an excision file number. A process excision file number. So at that excision file number, the excision is in view. The government have not they have not released that property yet. It's still in view. So there's just a lodgement that, okay, this community they are applying to the government or telling the government that, okay, you guys have acquired so acres in our community, release so acres to us. So there is in view a process or excision in process. Then after that, after the government have looked at the application, then the government now grants them that 190 acres. That's an approved excision. So okay, they have approved that this community will grant them 190 acres. The Surveyor General Office are going to go to the community and map out where exactly these 190 acres will be located. There will be boundaries there. Now, the approved excision, the excision block, village excision, they all represent that the government and have approved the release. Now, the difference is that the government have only approved the release, but they have not documented and published the release. Because every government law, there is always a gazette, which is like the official publication documents of the government in Nigeria, to show that, okay, so law have been enacted and been signed into law, or so statement have been signed into law. So for land transactions too, whenever the government acquire a land, they go to the gazette and record it there. So there will be a publication in the gazette. Whenever the government they also release a land, they will also go to the gazette and record it there. So the gazette will represent where they can easily track land transactions. It's not only land transactions that is recorded in the gazette, but for this video I'm only going to be peculiar about the land transactions. So they can easily go to the gazette and check that, okay, here the government of so administration acquired so property. Check the gazette, they can confirm it there. Yes, we took 20 acres, we took 10 acres. Then here we released so acres or so plots to the family. They can also go to the gazette and confirm that yeah that's true. So administration released so acres and so plot to so family. So that's when an excision process is completed, when it has been published in that gazette. The moment is not published in that gazette yet, that release is not fully completed in the eyes of the government. It's not fully completed because they have not published a gazette on it yet. So that's why the excision I typed there, you see a gazetted at the top, because that's the only excision that the government recognize when they have published a gazette on it. Every other one, to the government, they are still thinking about the excision. They are still thinking about it. Even if they have approved it, I know they have not published a gazette on it, they are still thinking about it. So it's not like they are not going to publish a gazette on that excision, but it's still likely that, for example, now the family applied for 100, and let's say the family applied for 200 acres. The government should release 200 acres for them. Then in the approved excision, the government approve 190 acres for them. Now in the gazette, the government can change their mind again that no, we are not giving you on 190. It's only 100. It's only 100 we are giving you. We are releasing for now. We are still holding 90 back. Or it's only 150 we are releasing now. We are still holding 40 acres back. You get now? So that's why gazetting that particular excision is very, very important. Very, very, particularly in locations where the government have very big interest, like Ibejuleki, particularly around this seaport side, and also some other locations around Lagos too, where the Lagos state government give them an excision, but they have already informed the families that this excision, this approved excision or this village excision, we are not going to gazette it. You guys should just come, pay us, and for us to give you our location on it instead. there are some exceptions like that. So because each time the government are always reviewing land, particularly in Lagos where land is limited, they are always reviewing land and looking at how to cut some certain locations, how to cut some certain land, how to cut some certain properties to accommodate some other allocations or some other infrastructures that the government have in plans. So that's why the Gazette is a very, very powerful document. And most of the communities in Lagos that have a Gazette, the Baale of that community, they are always aware, and that's why the property is never cheap. Once they have a Gazette, they always have that Gazette with them. So I know a lot of investors will be like, just go to the family or go to the community. Those ones that don't know anything now can buy it cheap. No, they know a lot. For all the buyers that have Gazette in Lagos, they have a document, they have a copy of that Gazette with them, so they know what they have and they know the value of what they have. So a gazetted excision is a very, very powerful document for families and for communities, because the government have fully released that land to them, and they can take up the documents in any legal battle if the government want to encroach in those parts that the government have gazetted with to them. All right, so the allocation parts, I've mentioned the difference between those parts, but let me briefly explain the relationship between allocation and excision, and I'll give you a very good example. Now there's this property, this estate selling in Ibejuleki around 2019. The estate is in Orofun and was selling on approved excision. The community has an approved excision, the government have given them an approved excision, but they have not gazetted it, they have not published that excision yet. So the company was selling that property for like a year plus on 9 million as excision, approved excision title. But the company was smart and they realized that seem like this excision, the government still have interest in it though, and they're not going to publish this excision in their gazette. So even if they publish this excision in their gazette, what if the part that they release in the gazette, our own part where we have an excision, does not fall under it? So the company quickly went to the government, the Lagos State government, and applied for a government allocation that this property, you have released it to the community, approved excision, but you have not gazetted it, but we have interest in this property, please give us a CFO, we need CFO for this property. So they applied for government allocation. So unfortunately for them, they paid the government a huge amount. The government gave them an allocation for that property, and then from there they start processing for CFO. So you can understand that if there is any property that you have in Lagos, particularly around the Ibejuleki axis, and is excision in view, just start allocation on it. If it's approved excision or village excision or excision block, let your surveyor check that excision for you. If the government still have interest in it, just jejely start government allocation process and don't wait for gazette, because the longer you are waiting for the government to gazette it, the more likely that the government can revoke that excision and allocate that property to someone else or to another company. So that's why this excision, you have to be very careful about it. If it has not been gazetted yet, you have to always look at the government interest in that location. For some locations like around Shakpati, around Bogije, around Oribanwa, some of these locations also have an excision, and it's still likely or hopefully that at least gradually the government will be gazetting some of these excisions, but they are not going to gazette or publish all the entire acres they approve. So if the approved excision is on, let's say 120 acres, by the time they are publishing a gazette on it, the gazette may be on 80 acres or 70 acres. So which means that they are taking back some acres again. So if you know that you really need that property, you really need it. So that's why a lot of the companies that bought or acquired land that are excision or that are village excision, they have already started to perfect those properties and get a CFO or get the governor's consent on that property. So, but we'll be talking about that one in our next videos, because I said I don't want to overload you. So we'll be stopping at this excision and allocation part. So I've explained the kind of connection between excision and allocation. So for any property that you acquired, is excision in view, is excision in process, just convert it to allocation, start to apply for allocation. Allocation is more expensive. That is far more expensive. So the money that you are trying to avoid by not buying a gazetted land, you are still going to spend it just to perfect that title, and that's where the government are waiting for everybody. So let's stop that. Let's stop there today, because I know that a lot of you guys have a lot of questions about the non-committed acquisition, the committed acquisition, and also some of the properties that you guys have bought already. You have some questions regarding that. We'll be taking those questions in the comments definitely, and if there's also any part of your questions which I feel I'm still going to be talking about in subsequent videos, I'm going to mention it. That just watch out for part 2, watch out for part 3. We're also still going to get down to that. So all this other part of the table, the governor's consent, deed of assignment, register survey, CFO free, we are still going to get to those points too, and we are still going to explain how all these titles, how they affect real estate, or how they affect the property that you have invested in. You can see that I've only talked about almost like 3 parts of this video, 3 parts of this table, and the video is already like 30 minutes long. Like 30 minutes long. So we don't want to overload you with too many things. We want to take it simple, so that bit by bit you can understand how these properties, how they change. And you can see there's an arrow there too, from governor's consent to public use, from free to non-committed acquisition, from non-committed acquisition to committed acquisition. We're also going to be talking about that in later parts of the video too. Don't forget, I put a lot of work into doing this. I put a lot of work into creating this table, explaining it too. So trust me, you want to give us a thumb like, you want to give us a thumb like, show that we have really tried. We have really tried. And trust me, there's still a part 2 coming about hierarchies of property titles here in Lagos, here in Nigeria. And so you want to give us a thumb like, you want to subscribe to this our channel, you want to turn on your notification button, so you're not going to miss any of these videos, because you need to know these things, particularly if you have got 6, 5, 4 different properties in and outside Lagos, Nigeria. So feel free to drop your comments, feel free to tell us your reviews, feel free to tell us your questions, feel free to also tell us anything that you understand about the land decree, the acquisition, and we are also willing to hear your perspective and also hear your opinion. As if I'm a property on the planet, property advisor, property consultant, Rabbi Mustafa, thanks once again for watching our video, and see you in part 2. See you next time.